She sat quietly at the corner table. Her $5 meal was cold, stone cold. When she politely asked for a refund, the entire restaurant turned into a circus of humiliation. The manager laughed. The staff whispered. Other customers filmed her embarrassment. They saw a woman too poor to afford proper food. What they didn't see was the billionaire investor conducting the most expensive test of her life, a test that would determine whether she bought their entire restaurant chain or destroyed it completely. Before we dive into this incredible story of judgment and justice, tell us, where are you watching from today? The fluorescent lights of Sunny's diner buzzed overhead like angry wasps, casting a harsh glow over the cracked vinyl booths and stained linoleum floors. Elena Martinez slipped through the glass door at exactly 11:30 on a Tuesday morning, her worn denim jeans whispering against each other as she walked. At 34, she possessed the kind of understated beauty that didn't announce itself. Her dark hair pulled back in a simple ponytail, her faded navy sweater soft from countless washings. She chose the corner booth deliberately, the one with the torn seat cushion and the wobbly table, settling in with the quiet grace of someone accustomed to being overlooked. The lunch rush hadn't started yet, leaving the diner in that peculiar state of anticipation that settles over restaurants in the between hours. Elena studied the laminated menu with its grease-stained pages and faded photographs of meals that had seen better days. Her finger traced down to the cheapest option, a $5 grilled cheese sandwich paired with tomato soup, the kind of comfort food that promised warmth but often delivered disappointment. Sarah, the waitress who approached her table, moved with the weary efficiency of someone who had been on her feet too long. Her uniform was clean but showed the telltale signs of a busy morning shift, coffee stains near the pocket and flour dusting the hem. She offered Elena a tired smile, the kind that came automatically after years of customer service. Elena placed her order with quiet politeness, her voice carrying just enough warmth to make Sarah's smile become genuine for a moment. When the food arrived 15 minutes later, Elena's heart sank slightly. The grilled cheese sandwich sat before her like a golden promise broken, its exterior perfectly toasted but radiating no heat whatsoever. She lifted one corner gently, revealing cheese that had long since solidified into a rubbery mass. The tomato soup beside it wore a thin film across its surface, the telltale sign of food that had been sitting under heat lamps far too long. Elena took a tentative sip, the lukewarm liquid confirming her suspicions about the kitchen standards. She caught Sarah's attention with a gentle wave, her movements careful not to create a scene. When the waitress hurried over, concern already creasing her features, Elena spoke in the measured tones of someone who had learned that kindness often yielded better results than anger. "Excuse me, I'm so sorry to bother you, but would it be possible to get a fresh meal? This one seems to have gotten a bit cold." Sarah's face flushed with embarrassment, and she reached for the plate immediately. "Oh my goodness, I'm so sorry. Let me get you something hot right away." But before she could lift the dishes, a voice boomed across the diner with the authority of someone who believed his position gave him the right to humiliate others. Brad Thompson emerged from behind the counter like a storm cloud, his polyester manager's uniform stretched tight across his considerable frame. His face was already red with indignation before he reached Elena's table. And when he spoke, his voice carried to every corner of the restaurant. "Ma'am, this isn't a charity kitchen where you get to send food back because you don't like it. You pay your money. You eat what you get. That's how restaurants work." The diner fell silent except for the persistent buzzing of the fluorescent lights. Conversations died mid-sentence as heads turned toward the corner booth where Elena sat, her composure intact despite the color rising in her cheeks. She could feel the weight of every stare, the collective judgment of strangers who saw only what Brad wanted them to see, a woman too poor to deserve proper service, too insignificant to matter. Brad's voice grew louder, feeding off the attention like a performer who had found his audience. "Some people think that $5 buys them five-star service. Well, let me tell you something. Lady, this is Sonny's Diner, not the Ritz-Carlton. You want your food reheated? That'll be another $5. A couple at the adjacent table, their designer clothes and expensive watches marking them as the kind of customers Brad typically fawned over, exchanged amused glances. The woman leaned toward her companion, not bothering to lower her voice. Can you believe this? Some people have no shame. Her laugh was sharp and cutting, designed to wound. I mean, who complains about a $5 meal? Sarah stood frozen between Elena and Brad, her face a mask of conflicted loyalty. She mouthed a silent apology to Elena, her eyes filled with shame that wasn't hers to carry. But when Elena looked at her hopefully, Sarah could only shake her head slightly. Jobs were hard to come by, and Brad Thompson was not a forgiving boss. Elena reached into her purse and pulled out her phone, her movements deliberate and calm. As she dialed, Brad's expression shifted to one of smug satisfaction. He assumed she was calling friends to complain, maybe threatening to leave negative reviews online. What he didn't hear was Elena's quiet voice saying, "Yes, I'm here now. Proceeding with the evaluation as planned. The service standards are exactly what we suspected." Brad's confidence swelled. "Go ahead, call whoever you want. Post your little reviews on Yelp. Write to corporate if it makes you feel better. We don't need customers like you dragging down our reputation. $5 doesn't make you Gordon Ramsay, sweetheart." Near the window, a young woman with her phone already recording had caught the entire exchange. The influencer's eyes lit up with the recognition of content gold, her finger hitting the live stream button as Brad continued his tirade. Comments began flooding in immediately, viewers drawn by the drama unfolding in real time. The video quality was perfect, capturing every word of Brad's increasingly aggressive rant, every detail of Elena's quiet dignity in the face of public humiliation. "You know what your problem is?" Brad continued, his voice rising to a crescendo. "You people think the world owes you something. You come in here with your sad little $5, expecting to be treated like royalty. Well, this is reality, not some fantasy where poor people get special treatment." Elena stood slowly, her movements graceful despite the tremor in her hands. She placed a $10 bill on the table, twice what she owed, and gathered her simple canvas purse. As she walked toward the door, every eye in the restaurant following her progress, she paused beside Brad Thompson. Her voice was so quiet that only he could hear it, but the words carried a weight that made him step back involuntarily. "Thank you for the lesson," she said, her dark eyes meeting his with an intensity that should have warned him. It was exactly what I needed to see. The door chimed softly as Elena disappeared into the Portland afternoon, leaving behind a restaurant full of people who had no idea they had just witnessed the beginning of the end of everything Brad Thompson thought he knew about power, respect, and the true cost of treating people as less than human. The black sedan pulled away from Sonny's diner as Elena Martinez settled into the leather passenger seat, her assistant Marcus already pulling up files on his tablet. What the patrons inside that greasy establishment didn't know, what Brad Thompson couldn't have imagined in his most paranoid nightmares, was that they had just humiliated one of the most powerful women in the American restaurant industry. Elena Martinez wasn't just any customer seeking a $5 meal. She was the self-made billionaire founder of Martinez Hospitality Group, an empire that stretched across 23 states and encompassed 847 restaurants. The woman who had sat quietly in that torn vinyl booth, accepting public humiliation with grace, had built her fortune from absolutely nothing. There had been nights, not so many years ago, when Elena had slept in her beaten-down Honda Civic in restaurant parking lots, studying business plans by the dome light and dreaming of the empire she would one day create. She had started with a single food truck, working 18-hour days, saving every penny until she could afford a tiny storefront in East Los Angeles. That first restaurant, Maria's Kitchen, had succeeded not because of fancy marketing or celebrity endorsements, but because Elena understood something that Brad Thompson clearly didn't. Every customer deserved to be treated with dignity, regardless of how much money they spent. Marcus glanced up from his tablet, his expression grim. "The preliminary investigation confirms everything we suspected about the Sonny's chain," he said, scrolling through pages of documentation. "This wasn't an isolated incident. Brad Thompson has a pattern of treating customers poorly, especially those he perceives as having limited means. For the past 3 weeks, Martinez Hospitality investigators had been embedded throughout various Sunny's locations, documenting service standards, food quality, and management practices. What they found painted a disturbing picture of a company that had lost sight of basic hospitality principles. Elena's method was always the same when considering acquisitions. She insisted on experiencing each potential purchase as an ordinary customer, without the protective bubble of her wealth and status. It was a practice that had served her well over the years, revealing truths that corporate presentations and financial statements could never capture. The $340 million acquisition of Sonny's Diner had been months in the planning, contingent on her personal assessment of their service culture. What she had experienced today was exactly what she had feared she might find. The investigation files told a troubling story. Sarah, the kind waitress who had tried to help Elena, had actually filed multiple complaints with Sonny's corporate office about Brad Thompson's behavior toward customers. Her reports described incidents of verbal abuse, discriminatory treatment based on appearance and perceived economic status, and a toxic work environment that drove away quality employees. Every complaint had been ignored, filed away in some corporate cabinet and forgotten. The food quality issues were equally damning, with health department warnings at multiple locations and customer complaints about cold food, poor preparation, and unsanitary conditions going unaddressed. Meanwhile, the video of Elena's humiliation was spreading across social media platforms with the viral velocity that only authentic outrage could achieve. The young influencer who had live-streamed the incident had captured every cruel word, every dismissive gesture, every moment of Elena's quiet dignity in the face of public embarrassment. Within 6 hours, the video had accumulated over 2 million views, and the comments section had become a battleground of public opinion. Viewers were outraged by Brad Thompson's behavior, sharing their own stories of restaurant discrimination and calling for boycotts of Sonny's Diner. Local news stations picked up the story by evening, framing it as a broader discussion about customer service standards and workplace bullying. Brad Thompson's name began trending on Twitter, but not for reasons he would have wanted. His photograph, pulled from the diner's website, circulated alongside hashtags demanding accountability and respect for service workers and customers alike. The public had found their villain, and they were not inclined toward forgiveness. In a glass tower across town, the corporate headquarters of Sonny's Diner erupted into crisis mode. CEO Richard Hawthorne spent the evening making increasingly frantic phone calls, trying to understand how a simple customer service issue had exploded into a public relations nightmare. His team scrambled to identify the woman in the video, hoping to reach out with apologies and damage control before the story grew any larger. What they discovered in their research sent shockwaves through the executive suite. Elena Martinez was not just any disgruntled customer. She was a titan of the restaurant industry, a woman whose business decisions could make or break entire chains. Her reputation for fair dealing was matched only by her ruthlessness toward companies that failed to meet her standards. When Martinez Hospitality acquired struggling restaurants, they typically saw immediate improvements in employee wages, working conditions, and customer service training. But companies that crossed Elena Martinez rarely survived the experience intact. The emergency board meeting was called for 7 a.m. the following morning, with Richard Hawthorne facing the terrifying reality that his company's potential savior had been publicly humiliated by one of his managers. The irony was devastating. Sonny's Diner was hemorrhaging money, closing locations, and desperately seeking a buyer. The Martinez acquisition would have saved thousands of jobs and restored the chain to profitability. Instead, one man's cruelty had potentially destroyed their last hope for survival. Brad Thompson, meanwhile, remained blissfully unaware of the storm gathering around him. He had gone home that evening feeling satisfied with his handling of the difficult customer, perhaps even bragging to his wife about how he had put another entitled woman in her place. He had no idea that his face was being shared across social media platforms, that news crews were already planning visits to his diner, or that his name was becoming synonymous with everything wrong with customer service in America. The woman he had dismissed as insignificant was, at that very moment, reviewing acquisition documents in her penthouse office, making decisions that would determine not just his future, but the future of every employee in the Sonny's Diner chain. Elena Martinez had built her empire on the principle that respect was not a luxury to be earned through wealth, but a basic human right. Tomorrow, she would return to Sonny's Diner, and Brad Thompson would learn the true cost of forgetting that fundamental truth. The black town car pulled up to Sonny's Diner at precisely 10 a.m. on Thursday morning, its polished exterior reflecting the uncertain Portland sky. Elena Martinez stepped out onto the cracked pavement, but this time she was transformed. Gone were the faded jeans and worn sweater, replaced by a charcoal gray Armani suit that spoke of boardrooms and billion-dollar decisions. Her dark hair was swept into an elegant chignon, and her makeup was applied with the precision of someone who understood that appearance could be armor in the business world. Behind her emerged three individuals in equally sharp attire, leather briefcases in hand, their movements coordinated with the efficiency of a legal team that had executed countless corporate acquisitions. The same glass door chimed as Elena entered, but this time every head turned for entirely different reasons. Her presence commanded the space in a way that money and power inevitably did, creating ripples of curiosity and speculation among the breakfast crowd. She approached the hostess station where a nervous teenager stammered through the usual greeting, clearly intimidated by the unexpected formality of Elena's entourage. "Table for one, please," Elena said, her voice carrying the measured confidence of someone accustomed to being obeyed. "I'd like to discuss a business proposition with your manager." Brad Thompson emerged from the kitchen, wiping his hands on his stained apron, his expression already shifting into the obsequious demeanor he reserved for customers he perceived as important. He didn't recognize her immediately. The transformation was too complete, the context too different from their previous encounter. In his mind, powerful people looked like the woman before him, not like the shabby customer he had humiliated just 48 hours earlier. "Good morning, ma'am," he said, his voice honey-smooth with manufactured charm. "I'm Brad Thompson, the manager. How can I help you today?" Elena reached into her briefcase and withdrew a business card, extending it with the deliberate ceremony of someone who understood the weight of revelation. The embossed letters caught the fluorescent light. Elena Martinez, Chief Executive Officer, Martinez Hospitality Group. Brad's eyes focused on the card, then darted back to Elena's face as recognition dawned like a terrible sunrise. The color drained from his face so rapidly that, for a moment, Elena wondered if he might actually faint. "I believe we met 2 days ago," Elena said, her voice soft but carrying to every corner of the suddenly silent restaurant. "You served me a $5 lesson in customer service that I found quite educational." The words hung in the air like an indictment, and Brad's mouth opened and closed soundlessly, his brain struggling to process the impossible reality before him. The shabby woman who had asked for fresh food, the target of his public humiliation, was one of the most powerful figures in the restaurant industry. Elena gestured toward her legal team, who had already begun arranging documents on a nearby table. "I have some news that might interest you, Mr. Thompson. As of 8:30 this morning, Martinez Hospitality Group completed the acquisition of the entire Sonny's Diner chain, $340 million, cash transaction, all regulatory approvals expedited." She paused, allowing the magnitude of her words to sink in. "Congratulations. You now work for me," Brad stammered, his face cycling through a spectrum of emotions from disbelief to terror. But you were just some poor woman complaining about cold food. I mean, how could you possibly—" His voice trailed off as the full implications of his situation became clear. The woman he had dismissed, humiliated, ejected from his restaurant was now his ultimate boss, the person who held his livelihood in her hands. "I was a customer," Elena replied, her tone patient but implacable. "I was testing whether your establishment deserved my investment, whether your team understood the fundamental principles of hospitality that built this industry. You failed that test spectacularly." She turned to address the restaurant at large, her voice carrying the authority of ownership. "Effective immediately, this location and all Sonny's Diner restaurants will be operating under new management standards." Sarah, the waitress who had tried to help Elena during her previous visit, stood frozen near the coffee station, her eyes wide with amazement and dawning hope. Elena's gaze found hers across the crowded restaurant. "Sarah, isn't it? I remember your kindness the other day. I'd like to offer you the position of regional manager for our Oregon locations. Your first assignment will be implementing our new customer service protocols across 15 restaurants." The transformation Elena implemented was swift and comprehensive. Within hours of the acquisition announcement, every Sonny's Diner employee received notice of immediate wage increases averaging 40% above their previous compensation. Mandatory customer service training programs were scheduled, built around Elena's core philosophy that every person who entered their restaurants deserved respect and dignity regardless of their economic circumstances. The company motto, displayed prominently in every location, became a testament to Elena's experience: every customer is a potential owner. Brad Thompson's termination was handled with the same efficiency that characterized all of Elena's business decisions. Security personnel, professional and courteous, escorted him from the premises while the morning customers watched in fascination. There was no dramatic confrontation, no shouting match. Elena understood that true power was exercised quietly, with devastating effectiveness. Brad's career in restaurant management was effectively over. Word of his treatment of Elena spread through industry networks faster than gossip, ensuring that no reputable establishment would risk hiring him. 6 months later, the transformation was complete and remarkable. Sonny's Diner had become the fastest-growing restaurant chain in the Pacific Northwest, with customer satisfaction scores that exceeded industry standards and employee retention rates that other companies studied enviously. Sarah had proven herself an exceptional manager, overseeing 15 locations with the same kindness and attention to detail that had first caught Elena's attention. Her success story became a cornerstone of Martinez Hospitality's recruitment philosophy: character mattered more than credentials. Meanwhile, Brad Thompson remained unemployed, his applications rejected by restaurant after restaurant as his reputation preceded him. The viral video of his treatment of Elena had become a cautionary tale shared in management training seminars across the country. Elena's story, meanwhile, was being taught at Harvard Business School as a case study in authentic leadership, customer-centric business practices, and the transformative power of treating every interaction as an opportunity to demonstrate company values. The lesson was profound and permanent in a world where appearances could deceive and circumstances could change overnight. The only reliable measure of character was how people treated those they perceived as powerless. Elena Martinez had built an empire on that principle, and she had just proven once again that kindness was not weakness, and cruelty always carried a price that few could afford to pay. Elena Martinez proved that every interaction matters. How you treat someone when you think they can't help you reveals your true character. That $5 meal cost Brad Thompson his career and taught an entire industry about respect. Elena didn't buy the restaurant for revenge. She bought it to show that success comes from serving others, not looking down on them. Remember, you never know who's sitting at table 12. The person you dismiss today might be the one deciding your tomorrow. What's your story of being underestimated? Share it below, and don't forget to subscribe for more incredible stories of justice served.